Hey everybody, welcome into the Beehive. I am the Bee, and today we're going to talk a little precious metals. And I have Space Miner here with me, and we're going to talk about the price increase in silver and in gold, and also about some other unique metals that are increasing in value and disappearing off the shelf, and what some of our thoughts are on the precious metals market, and is this going to be a sustained move that we have or a bubble, this type of a conversation. Coffee and stocks, Jake's Custom Parts, good to see you guys. So yeah, I am. How are you doing, Space Miner? Welcome in.
Hey, how you doing? Thanks for having me.
Yes,
What's
yes.
up, chat? Hi, guys.
So one of the first things I want to look at is the gold to silver ratio. So we had an amazing run today in silver. From we've had the let's just click here on today, and today's high was 119.39 with a low of 102.95. So amazing move. So yeah, first we had $5 moves, then $10 moves. Now $17 move. Uh, Pretty impressive. Pretty volatile. What
Yeah,
say you?
it's crazy to look back and remember when we would get excited over 25 cents, you know?
Yeah,
And then we watched dollar days come out and we were like minds blown, whoa, dollar days, and then $5 days. And now here we are in 10 plus dollar days.
so
Like,
exciting going from years of like, oh, it's 10 cents up. You're like, all right, or oh, it's 4 cents down, or just so steady for so long, and now it's like, whoa, $17 today. That was crazy.
yeah,
So,
we were quibbling over pennies, man.
all right, yeah,
Quibbling over pennies and $5 and $10 premiums, and it's like, dude, we lose $5 and $10 in 20 minutes,
yep,
you
yep.
know?
That's kind of what we were talking about early on. There was, don't be such a stickler on the premiums, because it's not going to matter where we're going. Sublime Mad Dog, welcome in. Hey, if you don't mind sending me a email, I got a giveaway for you. Just I don't know if you sent me an email. You're my one person that I have to try to make contact with you to get your address and whatnot to get it shipped out to you. So if you don't mind,
And
longlivecoins@gmail.com. Let me put that up in the.
and while he's doing that, coffee, um, let me know when your package arrives so that we can get your OCC in place. I've been holding on to that, to make sure that if anything happens, I can do something about it. But as soon as your package arrives, let me know so we can finalize your transfer, buddy.
And yeah, good to see you, Joseph. And yeah, I'll try to get you an email out here too, Joseph. And Jake's Custom Parts, good to see you.
What up, Jake?
So yeah, so
Oh, you
now.
got it today. Cool.
Oh,
All
nice.
right. Hey, 1 second. We've got a couple people in here who've joined Club Osmium, and I just like to say,
Oh, nice.
welcome in, family. Welcome to Club
Congratulations.
Osmium. It's a pleasure having you. And coffee, as soon as we're done here, I'll whip that over to you right away. Okay, all yours.
Awesome.
I was curious if it would get through customs. Like we had to play a little bit of games. Canada's not real happy with us right now, and
Yep,
so
yep. We were just me and Space Miner were talking about that, so that's good to hear. And I got one going over to Down Under, and I'm hoping that one will make it through as well. So But yeah, we think we're cleared with customs, and that's one of the great things about this product is being able to move your wealth through customs and not have any problems.
Yep.
So it's good to see. Okay, so let's go. Yeah, here we are at the gold to silver ratio, and so if we go to 1 year, it's been like roughly 7 months. We
Look at that cascade.
we went yeah we went from 105 basically. It was actually 106 down to 44.78. It's showing right there. I think if you look up, well, no, 44.79 now. So we're quickly approaching 40. I mean, I was said I might start to do a little bit of trade at 30, but I'm surprised to see how fast we're rapidly approaching that. It's like, wow.
Yeah.
But that right there is why, I've been a silver bug for a while. So we'll see if that continues or not, but I think it will. And I think this is going to be a sustained thing. And I'm not expecting any large pullbacks like this sharp drop we had here. I was talking to Space Miner earlier, and I was like, if this bounces back, that's going to be fairly positive. And so yeah, I don't think this is gonna be a top out. I think we're just getting to a new floor. And how do you feel about that, Space Miner?
I think the closer that the ratio narrows, the slower we'll see the change. Because we still have to deal with the actual price. I mean, at the end of the day, the GSR doesn't change the value of either one. Gold is worth what gold's worth, and silver's worth what silver's worth. And at the end of the day, for like any newcomers that need to figure this out in a hurry, it's if you can buy an ounce of gold, you can buy this much silver. If you can buy this much silver, you can buy this much gold.
Yep.
And beyond that, it can mean a lot of things. You can extrapolate a lot out of it, but there's not much more to it.
Right.
It really is that simple.
Yeah, and
as we spend more, as these prices come up, and I believe we'll see a decrease in the pace of the ratio. But I think that the slower that the ratio moves might actually represent the amount of price increase we'd be seeing directly. So the faster the price moves, the slower perhaps we could see the ratio move as well, indicating a lot of money moving in or a rapid and equal rise in prices.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we've definitely had quite a jump there on the ratio, so it could taper a little bit here.
But they could both go up in price by 10 times. They could both go up in price by 10 times overnight, and it's not going to change one thing about the ratio.
Right.
It's really it's more about like cost accessibility. If you want to take a deciding view through that, it could tell you a little bit about your cost accessibility. So, okay. All right, please go ahead. My apologies.
In there, but yeah, Jake's Custom Parts is saying, will the local LCS do the trade, silver for gold, gold, silver? Just asking. Yeah, well, that's the other thing about the gold to silver ratio. And the premium involved in the swap. But, so yeah, a lot of, it's as each LCS chooses, right? But usually there's going to be a little bit of a premium, but they'll do the swap for you, right? It's going to be the same as a buy-sell premium on your silver or gold kind of type of deal. Be like, if it's at 45, we might do it at 46, right? And get a little, a couple dollars back, however it might be, or depending on the amount, the volume. So, but yeah, usually an LCS will do the trade for you, but you're just going to have a couple dollar premium, the same as you would if you were selling them silver. They're going to maybe sell it a couple dollars over spot and buy it a couple dollars under spot. So it's going to be the same with a lot of LCSs. Some might do it flat out, so I think it varies, but a lot of people will include that, because they got to make some money too. So.
Well, one thing I've also seen too, in my experience, I'm not saying it is the way it is, but depending on how your local values one metal over another, you could see adjustments to that ratio being made, according to their favor. If they like gold a lot more than they like silver,
Oh, for sure.
they might not be willing to, like, that ratio. You could actually be looking at two different completely GSRs between trading your silver or trading your gold with that one feller.
Right. With that, depending on which LCS you're at. And it will, like he's saying, that the ratio will vary on a few things. One of them being how much gold do they have in stock and how much need do they have to buy more gold. Well, if you're bringing in gold, they're going to give you a better ratio. And if they already, have too much silver, they might give you a worse ratio. So that totally depends on each local coin store as well, I think. So
my local who buys metal at 10% under spot, and then he sells at spot, he would be liable to charge you the 10% of whatever you're bringing in, and then just give you the trade according to that remaining value, is likely how he would handle that. So you would probably need a little bit of silver over the ratio to make that capture, or gold to make the capture of silver. So that's likely how he would deal with it. So
cool. Yeah. So yeah, for us, we think that this is going to be kind of a sustained move. Probably has quite a ways to go. A lot of people really don't think that this is something that they were expecting, but for me, this is something I was expecting. So thank you, Sublime. I appreciate that. I'll get back to you.
Welcome in, CT.
Yep, good to see you, CT. So yeah, I think this is something I was kind of expecting. And, I've talked about it before too, where it's the back end that's buying it up. It's not really retail right now. A lot of retail is selling, but that's always pointed out in the community, is that we don't have a large effect on the price of silver, and we don't for the general ratio or the general amount consumed by the public. But if true wealth starts to move in, which I think is likely to happen, because I think our dollar is being affected that heavily at this point, that wealth is going to have to start looking for another place to park and preserve their wealth. And now I think reaching this, hitting 100 and breaking through it with ease, I think rang some bells for people. And so I think this is just kind of the start of a sustained move, because there's for many reasons, but it's overall a commodity war, and gold and silver are going to be your key steam pressure relief valves for all that pressure, right? Like, because all of that, if the dollar starts, or continues at the rapid rate of decline, I should say, it's not been too bad, but you're starting to see it in inflation. It's it's picking up fast. So, and they're talking about printing again at this point. So, if the metal's moving like this before they're printing and then now lowering interest rates, and this should continue to go. And with what we're going to talk about in a little bit with, like China and the US, looking at labeling, is it a critical mineral? And now China's not exporting anymore. And that's like the main exporter of many of the metals. And so, maybe for the metals to take off, because the big money hasn't even really moved in yet. A lot of corporations are seeing it. They're making moves. And, I think once the big money starts to move in, it'll be sucked up on the back end. And it's going to be one of these things where we went from $20-$30, for years and years, just steady, to suddenly, pow. Everybody thinks it's going to drop back down, but there's not going to be. We're going to go from $30 an ounce to 130, and probably rise from there. And look how many people are getting locked out just because of, to me, that's manipulation at play. And I kind of expected for this would, there's a high possibility that this might play out this way. So for me, this is not unexpected. And this is something I said definitely could happen. Be careful not to sell out right away, because this could be extreme if it's the breakdown that I think is occurring. And I think that's why we're seeing all the breakdown between countries, in trade and in borders and, and all of this. So if that continues to play at the latest Davos, that was what Trump said, that there's the global game is over, and it's each to their own. And a few people said that, so if that's the true trend, and the dollar is going to continue to go down, and countries are going to continue to flee from the treasuries because they know that they're not to be trusted, then this is just getting going, and things will not. And all the things that everybody warns about, like, be careful what you wish for, all that stuff is in the long run true. And so, yes, it's good to be in the metals because they usually move more and faster. So it's a good place to be, but also, like we're saying, it's going to be a lot of different commodities, some more than others, but real things are going to be the new value. And I feel we've been living in a false reality or false sense of value for a long time, and that's kind of being done to keep us disillusioned from these things. And then it gives them time to make you believe, oh, it's going to be at 20, it's going down from 20, it'll never, to suddenly, boom, gaps way up, and it's hard to get a hold of. And so I don't know. What do you think about that?
Well, something that's kind of been on my mind recently is industry awareness, I guess, comes to mind. And this has actually been really strong on my mind. I've kind of been thinking that, like, look, the average consumer has little to nothing to do with the overall silver price.
Right.
Like your average consumer. The majority of this is in your big money groups and in your industries, okay? And they're the guys leading the way. And so I've been arguing that if I was a major industry like Samsung, and, I wanted to stabilize my production, okay? My production costs, and I wanted to just it's such a small percentage of my overall unit that I'm trying to sell that I would just want to stabilize everything. And this kind of volatility would wreck me when I realize I am dealing with millions and millions and millions of dollars that that and this kind of an order could fluctuate by $1 million overnight. I just want to stabilize my unit cost and get back to making profit, right? If I can just capture it now and get these phones online, these solar panels, these batteries, these engines, whatever it is the product is, if I could just get it online and producing it and have all my silver now, I don't have to worry about the price later.
Yes.
And any basic economist could look at this and see the trend. Like, hey, unit price goes up, the longer we wait, the more
Yeah.
risk we take. We could try to capture these lows, but we're not institutional investors. We're a phone company, you see?
Yeah.
And so, but beyond that, you're not going to see a huge difference with 1, 2 companies reacting. But much in the same way, our our general population, we can clear the shelves on a bullion pretty quick. It goes crazy, and now the shelves are clear of this one particular coin.
Yeah. Yep.
You
Like
know,
toilet paper. Yeah. Yep.
and so much in the same way, we can clear a shelf of a local bullion, a local coin store. Um, these institutional guys, institutional investors, or major industries, they're coming awareness of this. Like, look, there's new industries hitting every day, new businesses trying to fire up and compete. And they know they might not last 10 years. They know they might not have the resources for the next 10 years, but they don't care if they can get out and make a bunch of products in a hurry and get out, and on to the next project, right? And so as more competing businesses are entering industries, and as more institutional investors are entering the industry, and as more exploration investors, like, common folk investors, are exploring tangibles and exploring the paper markets, this is all gold and silver being consumed at rapid paces. So the 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 one pattern I really see here is like a rising of awareness and an increase in our investment population. And so it's a natural occurrence what we're witnessing. So we like to we've talked for years about, like, we should be proud of ourselves. We're that 1%, we're that 5%, whatever percent,
Hmm.
of people that hold medals. Well,
Hmm.
guys, we were.
Right.
There's this percentage is increasing every day of people latching on to something, like you were saying, something real, something
Yeah.
that they hold. And we're seeing this in the paper markets right now. We're seeing this. We see all kinds of figures thrown around everywhere, from 30 to 1, 3 to 1 of paper versus tangible, you know?
Yeah.
And so as awareness builds, it'll build exponentially ultimately. And
Yeah.
that population surge, or that investment surge, we're not dealing with old traditional numbers anymore, and it's creating an exponential effect no matter which way, because some of these mines are at peak mining, some of these nations are dipping into their reserves. um we haven't been building mines as fast as we've been building a consumer base, and we only have so much available. Put all the
Yeah.
pieces together and we have a confluence of of people trying to just preserve values, like back to the big phone company. They're just trying to preserve value.
Yeah.
Back to the small guy. I'm just trying to preserve value. And the more of us that become aware, I mean, the more of us have the probability of having more money than the other guy. And all it takes in some of these metals is 1 or 2 guys, you know, to make an effect, and it's a serious effect. Some of these metals, a single guy can consume 1% of a world supply, a single guy in some
Yeah.
of these metals.
Yep.
So it's
Right.
natural.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a Giffen good, as they call it, right? It actually increases in desire and value, and more people want it, the higher the price goes. Because it, when it's down low, when it's hated, when $12 an ounce, you know, you look at that and you're like, why would I waste my time and my value? And but as that price increases and increases, and you're like, wow, just 1 ounce is, over $100 or over $200, or, it starts, now you're getting into that higher value range, and look at its percentage increase. And then investors start noticing that. And so, like, that momentum, like you're saying, builds and builds in a Giffen good. It actually becomes more desired, because then when more investors come in to get it, now the industry needs theirs more, and they start to look ahead. Like you say, it's just this building thing. And being that we're the world's reserve currency, and all of the other countries have to run to these metals, so like all of this fake fiat imaginary world that we've been living in has to find its way back into reality. And so generally throughout history, it's gold and silver that it suck that value up the most. But all of the commodities will become, and especially some that you get right that are, and if global trade breaks down like they're saying it is, like we're seeing with these tariffs, and on, if that just keeps going, then things that bananas, suddenly we can't get bananas because we don't have a tropical weather to grow bananas, and whatever the case may be. So that's where you get commodities that get ridiculously high valued, and but generally it's gold and silver that do the most, the quickest. And so yeah, it's a bad situation that we're going into, and usually it's just a one country event when you have an, like a inflationary event like that, like a hyperinflation Weimar type thing. But this time, where it's a global reserve, this, who knows what what we're looking at right here. And if we do it, because you know a lot of it anyway is going to get driven back into real goods. That's going to become the new value, is the commodities. The things that don't have value will lose their value faster. That's the time we're in, when you know when the tensions rise, when suddenly NATO is shaky, and like that's when lines are redrawn and deals are broken. And so, though, that credit that was once good, right? Because so much of it is credit, right? And when that credit starts to break down, then people can't pay people back, and blah blah blah. That's when it really unravels. And so all of the real things will go up in value, because that value is remaining and increasing. And so it's an interesting, it's a kind of a reversal of our what we've been brought up in, where you want the dollar, and we're working so hard for it, and that's how we buy everything with it. And so a lot of reverse psychology has to take place. But from what the books say about it, it can happen really quickly once it finally breaks through to the more, the larger masses.
Well, I think you're really hinting at a really important part of this, which would be the supply chain. We're talking about actually supplying it, like you mentioned with bananas needing the right environment, right? Well, we we've kind of grown up we've lived for a long time, this nation has, in the luxury of having supplies available. We've had the cooperation, we've had the trade partnerships, we've had the relations, okay? And we've had these in place. And so a lot of these metals we've really taken for granted our access to. One of those that we were discussing earlier that I ran into again, you don't know how many metals I've been kicked out of. But again, here we are with, I made a purchase of gallium, right? And this is a metal that for the USA, we are 100% dependent on import. We don't create our own gallium. Maybe there's some guys sitting in a garage somewhere doing it, but we're not talking about them.
Right.
We're talking about the guys that produce industrial levels.
Yeah.
And we are 100% dependent on this, on other nations for this one metal, as an example. And there are many metals like this. And when you start looking at, if you made value corrections based on what we could replace tomorrow, I mean, how would that affect silver? How much of the silver do we consume? What percentage of the silver that we consume comes from outside, from a production outside the U.S.? And if we're cut off from that tomorrow, how would that affect the price of silver that comes from the U.S., in the U.S.?
Yeah.
You see?
And we're going to experience that, right? Because like you're talking about, gallium is just one of these many metals that we know China's been sucking up like a Hoover for quite a while, and now they're putting export limitations, pretty much completely shutting it off unless you have a special license. I don't know how hard that is to get, but it's definitely an indication that they want to keep a close eye on how much is leaving their country.
Yeah, and there's a lot of these metals. China has said by law, no more export. You do not export XYZ. That's real.
Yeah. Welcome in, Tiger. Yeah. So,
Yeah, I like to look at them as a glimpse into the future. Some of these metals.
Yeah.
Like we get a chance, we get exposure to what happens when critical supplies run low. Like, Coffee was in there saying, this is supply and demand 101. How much is there? Do we have it or do we not? And if we don't have it, how much is it going to cost to get it?
Yeah.
Yep.
And how good are the relations with that? I mean, that's going to become. I'm surprised. I mean, I'm glad, and I don't want to say too much to get people thinking, I guess. But I'm kind of. I mean, the nationalization is, at this rate, at this speed, is becoming a much bigger threat, right? I mean, why, if you're, when you see China doing what they're doing on the restriction of metals and us labeling it and watch it rise in value like it has, and not think that beings we're going into a commodity war, a money that's, kept the world running for thousands of years, might be something you might want to think about keeping a little for yourself.
Well, and silver and gold is the right tool for the job to start with, right? It's more than just our technology. It's a communicator. All of our precious metals bear something unique in mind, that unlike all the rest of our metals in the periodic table, okay, the precious metals are the ones that aren't affected. Every other metal out there lives as an oxide that we have to put in like some serious work to preserve this metal or to create this metal, to make it a usable metal. These are the usable metals at all times. Okay. And that's what makes them part of what makes them a precious metal. And so it's a communicator, that it's a communication tool. Like, we have enough of these in just enough abundance to create both a rarity and a demand. It's useful enough to keep around. It's rare enough that it can hold a value against other fluctuating values, you know, but and it's also something that's found everywhere. You know, like every nation has access to this in some degree or another.
Well,
You
that's
know,
yeah. I mean, I think that's one of the reasons silver and gold became money so easily, right? Is because it is all over the world, and it's you know how the Bitcoiners are always distributed ledger that they can't control. Well, you want a true distributed ledger that you know already is spread about and can be it already is uncontrolled. You know, it is the metals that you know, and that's why it's money. And you know, for many, many more reasons. But it's like there is your uncontrolled distributed ledger. Now, a lot of people will say, well, but the elite have a lot of it, so it's not a good place to be. Well, it's better than being under their money printer. I can assure you of that. I mean, because hard money, there's only so much of it, and it is spread out all across the world. I have some myself. You have some yourself. So that underground, you know, trade of true value increases. You know, it's like we're seeing you know, these values become reality comes back into play. You know, and that's what's so great about the silver is because it's that distributed ledger. When the value enters back in like it is right now, I can still make private transactions. You're still happy because you have the true value in your hand. You don't have to worry about them hacking your code or you know, tracing your transaction or you know, all of that stuff. So
well, and another thing too about hoarders, you know, that as these metals are hoarded, in the meantime, again, these are common enough that we are still producing them, you know, and so it offers the people a chance to reclaim value as well. Because as they build values, you know, against these hedges, like look, much in the same way Bitcoin, every time a crypto coin, let's just say not a Bitcoin, but a crypto coin, every time a crypto coin is burned, okay, it disappears from the ledger and therefore increases the value of the nearby
right.
coin. Okay. Well,
Oh,
much in the same way as gold and silver gets hoarded, okay, and it disappears from that transactory community, okay, the nearby community's wealth gets to increase. And as this increase happens, it'll drive the demand to seek more. And we will produce more because of this.
and bring out what is being hoarded for the value. Like it's a self balancing act that's happening right there, and
Yeah,
that's
because
what
if it
makes
gets hoarded too long, we go dig up more. If there's enough of it available, it's not worth it to dig it up.
right, right. So that yeah, it's like a self, and that's the other like it's still better than the money printer because you know even if one nation has a lot, but if they need coffee, well, you know, sure I got coffee, but I'll have some of your gold, please. You know, and now you've got the gold and they have what they want with it, but they're going to want more coffee next year and they can't grow coffee. And so I'm going to continually be bringing that value into my area while it's leaving that area. And that's just like where you were talking about in the community, how it balances itself out in reality as well, like that. Like that's one of the great traits about it, right?
Well, and that's kind of, I think we could kind of approach this as a segue into these other metals as well, though, because once we've established a communicator and a wealth preserver, now it's time to like look, while these are a great communicator tool, life must move on. And life is not driven on gold and silver, believe it or not. I know
Right,
it's hard for some people to believe, but the world uses other metals.
right.
Okay. And these metals can crash our way of life. They can crash our standard of living, you know. And ultimately, this is what the gold and silver is there to pay for, is our standard of living, our quality of life. And it's these other metals that are driving the quality of life, right? And these have value too, but they move differently than gold and silver. They have different purposes, they have different entries, exits, and different volatility variables, you know. But so, but the same rules apply. The same rules apply of the supply, the demand, the consumption, the usage. What drives demand? It's a use function, it's a use case and consumption of it,
Yep.
To produce that.
Yep.
And so,
yeah, it's what someone else is willing to pay for it, right? The reason things come back to metals and come back to metals hard is because it's the true value that has underpinned every fiat, and all of our value, the reason we know what things cost is because it was X amount of gold at one time, and you could get X amount of gold with this much fiat. Therefore, that's how much this costs in fiat. And at one point, the gold just unknowingly got kind of taken out of the picture, so that the populace just went along with it costs this many fiat dollars and this many fiat dollars. But eventually, when that suddenly your fiat value is, the price is going up dramatically each day, then the community flees out of that fiat, and where they end up in gold and silver and other real goods, coffee, food, whatever, but housing, but real things, because the illusion that they've been under of that this fiat currency has the value of real money, because that's just where your psyche goes that gives them all the time to print the money up. They have it while it has the most value. They use it how they want to. By the time it trickles down to us, it takes it a while for it to hit the shelves, so we don't see it. It's quite a nifty program, and but eventually the people wake up to that, and the real value ends back up in real things.
Well, it was psychological too, wasn't it? And that was part of the play, was a psychological play, was this disconnect the mind, like, because we're talking about an era of people that were completely reliant upon what they owned. Everything they owned had like a purpose and a reason they owned it, and they saw direct value in direct goods. That's how it was built up into that point. And when we started introducing, like mass industry and stuff, blah, 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 and started disconnecting people from producing real goods, right? That's like kind of like stage one of that psychological disconnect, like disconnect them from the direct, give them a piece of the puzzle instead of teaching them how to do the whole thing. And then they come in and they disconnect the metal from the fiat, and they had to transition it. That's why they said, hey, look, you can still exchange it for metal, because we understand that this is psychologically important to you, and then they kind of got rid of that too. And people, I'm sure they threw a fit at the time. I'm sure there were people out there throwing a fit. But then we lived long enough without that currency being back, and then modern minds directly tie money to that green piece of paper instead of tying money to things that they actually own, which allowed them to move freely in the realm of commodity and just keep people distracted with the fiat, with inflations, deflations, and none of inflation, deflation isn't the same thing when you're talking about a commodity as when you're talking about a fiat, because a fiat needs to be paid back with something at the end of the day. You know, a fiat needs to come back home to roost in something tangible at the end of the day. That's why we see these. But in a tangible world, a fully tangible world, meaning not a fiat driven world, um, you know, these don't happen, they don't accelerate as quick because there's a cow, you know, a cattle rancher, he can't just exponentially grow, you know, a herd overnight.
Yeah.
He would have had to have earned it along the way, and then
Yeah.
he also would have lost it on the way back, you know, and it would have been quick. He would have been able to more quickly mitigate, you know, these inflation deflations, you know, and it really wasn't his thing because it wasn't, people weren't impacted as much because nowadays we can reach across the world for competition.
Yeah.
Back then, you could reach over a few counties.
Yep. Right. Yep.
And so it really was a huge psychological operation that had to go right along with this for them to get away with it this long. But you're right. We're all aware now because of that same connection makes us all hyper aware of like, oh, you know, well, you know, I can compete across the world with you now, you know, but now everything's being consumed on a worldwide level too in that same way. People are panicking waking up to this. This is not the same as waking up to like a county-wide
Right.
inflation or a
Exactly.
statewide inflation.
Exactly. Yeah. It's
It's
such
beyond
a,
that.
yeah, it's such a large level, and we're built, and for us to have remained and lived in that imaginary realm for the time that we did, you had to have that ability to reach across the world like that to get both your price and availability. And the shipping was cheap because the waters were tame. Everybody's ships were passing everybody. Everything's fine and dandy. But like when that goes away and there's no, you know, we can't trade anymore with other countries, and you know, there's blockades up and there's waters we can't go through, and yeah, that, you know, that all that trust and credit and the distribution lines all go down, and things become local, and real value will go back to real value, and and you know, I am under the understanding too that when these other countries, if they just all decide to drop their treasuries quickly, that just floods our economy with dollars. Let alone, you know, we're already there. So, and I don't see them wanting to buy more treasuries. So, and we know if the Fed buys their own treasuries back, that's the quickest inflationary thing out there. So, yeah, I just see this getting worse, and so the real value. That's why eventually everyone runs back to real things. Real value comes. Real reality basically comes back into play in commodities, in supply chains, in global goods, and you know, I don't even, I shouldn't even go down this track because it bothers me a lot. But
Do it.
the electric, the grid that we have in place at this point, you know, if everything just broke down and we went back to local supply chains, and everything was, you know, a free trade, free market effect, then okay, that not maybe not such a horrible thing. But you know, if you're in a grid and you can't just free market, freely build back up, freely travel where you want within your local area to get what you want, then that becomes a much harder environment to bounce back from. So that's the thing.
Well, let me capture something right there with that.
Yep.
That was one of the big selling points of the product that they offered called the US dollar. You know, we especially here in America, we tend to forget That's not an American institution per se. It's still a private entity. That's their product.
Yeah.
That's something they put on the shelf and they say, you should buy this greenback from us, because it's a great tool. It's a great communicator. Because here's the problem with your gold and silver. Your gold and silver can't move across the country overnight.
Yeah, but it was never like, this is how, like, that's true and it's a thing, but the how this got going was through credit and through trade, because when he closed the gold window, the first thing he said was, we're going to close the gold window here because we're having to, France wanted their gold back, and so we're closing the gold window because it's too much paper for our gold. And then, so he says, I'm closing the gold window temporarily, but don't worry. So he says temporarily to calm people's nerves.
Flatten the curve, bro. Flatten the curve.
Right. Exactly. And,
2 weeks. 2 weeks,
says, but don't worry, we'll be a forward-looking trading partner. Meaning, we're going to keep honest books here. And if everybody's like, okay, well, if you keep honest books, but then everybody's watching our books really close, right? Well, when they see that we're, printing more than we should and that we have seized somebody else's money, we're no longer honest business partners. Well, now, all of those built up contracts over there, because they continued to do the contracting with us and buy our dollars that were on the shelf, because it's like buying our good credit, because they still wanted our good trade with us. So that works up until your books go bad enough that they're like, wait, we're going back to real value, not that thing on your shelf that you're overabundantly, your books have gone off the rail and we no longer want to buy those because your credit's no good. And then that's why you get suddenly the BRICS, the whole BRICS ordeal.
Jake. Germany wanting their gold back. What, Germany? You want gold? What do you want that for?
Right. And so here we are. Right. And are we not witnessing the jurisdiction issue? Like, where are you storing? Where are you vaulting? And that's such a big subject. And if you're a big country, that's why Lynette Zhang always says, if you don't hold it, you don't own it. And it's maybe a little overdone perhaps, but it is also very meaningful, right? Like, think of these countries that are seeing what's happening and saying, I want my gold back. And they're like, yeah, well, let's start working on the paperwork, like,
yeah.
Have you signed up for a new digital ID?
The bank, and they scrape their lint out of their pockets, and then he goes to his buddy and says, hey, how much lint you got? Yeah.
Have you guys signed up for the new digital ID yet? Let's get started with this before we get you your gold.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. Hey, welcome in Osmium Connect.
That's awesome.
How much foreign gold is being held in the USA? Right, not mine, at the Fed.
At the Fed, yeah. The government doesn't hold any American gold.
I mean, that's definitely interesting to see. We know, like we were just talking, with China sucking up all the different metals, restricting the outflow. We know that they have more than they're letting on officially on the books. But the same with us, right? Like, how much do we actually have? How much does China actually have? And so to see some of those big flows that we heard about coming into the U.S. is very interesting. Because, like me and Ian were talking a few years ago, that's one of the things that we were arguing about. Well, what if just gold goes up that much? Like, and Ian's like, well, they'll just buy gold. They'll print money and buy gold. And I'm just kind of wondering if that's not what happened with that big load of gold that came over earlier in the year. To plug some holes that might have been there. But yeah. Interesting to see. And amazing. Like, what about these, these Saudi Arabias and, these type of countries that just naturally accumulate gold as families constantly. Look at their value gain, my goodness.
Yeah, and if you think they reported everything on the way,
Right.
either you're
Yeah.
crazy. Well, look at that Burkina Faso incident.
Okay, what's
The
it?
tons, I mean tons of gold missing off the books. They're like, we're missing. They suspect that it went to fund terrorism or something like Al Qaeda or something, perhaps. But it was just one incident. It was just one incident of many we know about of mass amounts of mass volumes of gold moving around unreported, only to be accounted for later. But like, meaning like for us to find out later, hey, we're missing 28 tons of gold. There should be 28 tons of gold somewhere. Where'd it go? You know? And like one of the things like I kind of wonder, like, about our gold. And I've said it before, I don't think we'll ever get a real audit on our gold that we'll know about, because one of two things will happen. We're going to find out we have a lot less gold than we should, or we're going to find out we had a lot more than we should. And either way, they're in trouble. Anything but a perfect report. And let's face it, if we got a perfect report, would you trust it?
Right.
And
Yeah.
so no matter which way they turn it, they're screwed right now. And only in some of these like first and second world nations are we able to really consume it as a private people right now. And so pretty much it's governments against us, the American people, in a lot of ways, um not
I
really
see.
against our government even.
Yeah, we're the last bastion, and for lots of different reasons on many different areas right now that I don't think a lot of us really, especially your average person who doesn't pay attention to this type of thing, understand. That how many things the United States is a beacon for, was a beacon for, at least anyway. Like, we've definitely mangled our character here harshly in the last several years, but um, back in the day, we were kind of something that people looked up to, right? Hey, 3D and L, welcome in. Think Differently 3000, good to see you. You can think differently. You're welcome to let me know and email me whenever, if you found a piece that you're ready on. We can work that through.
I say all the time, if your buddy the dealer ain't your buddy anymore, you still think you're getting a deal from the dealer, you know. And but here we are at the edge of 26, and I know personally like what it feels like to be shut out of a lot of different metals. A lot. Like from across, across the world,
Yeah,
you
well,
know.
let's talk a little bit about that. So we were talking about silver, no longer being exported out of China, and China's been sucking up all these different metals, and a lot of the metals that are these unique exotic metals that most people don't pay attention to, that get refined over in China and then export it to us, that's where we get it from. And so Space Miner, being the chemist slash metallurgic mind that he is, working in these metals, has dealers who he contacts and that get these metals, these unknown metals, shipped from China. And on several different ones lately, he's been unable to get them. They're no longer shipping out. They're no longer able to fill their orders. Go ahead and fill us in a little bit on that, Space Miner.
From what I've been directly experiencing is I go to order some of these, we'll just call them exotic metals, right? I go to order some of these exotic metals, and the reports I'm getting back are from the dealer saying, our laws are not allowing us to export these to your country at this time. We're not allowed to sell this to you at this time. If you want to buy this, you're going to need to fill out XYZ forms, have this reason, and then have this minimum purchase order, right? And they're really big orders. Like, pretty much the government's vetting anything but the biggest of money, and those willing to pay the most extraordinary fees.
Yeah.
And one by one, I've been getting cut off from metal after metal after metal. And all these metals have something in common. We're not producing them.
Yeah. And that's where the premiums really start to kick in on these metals, is when that type of thing starts to take place, right? I mean, it only makes sense.
And at the end of the day, and again, we're like, look, some people are like, well, what's its use? Is, like when we're talking about what's it used for, and then I name like one or two things, and they're like, well, that doesn't seem like a lot, and I'm like, I don't really want to over engage in those moments, but it doesn't have to have a lot of uses. It can have just one, and that could be enough to impact an entire nation. Oh yeah, nice little vial of that gallium there.
Yeah.
But a lot of these metals, we don't realize how critical they are until, like, all of a sudden you want to use smartphones and LEDs and fiber optics, and you want to have radars and 5G and Wi-Fi, and you want to, do, you don't want to look for cancer, and a lot of like gallium right there, gallium. There's like something like 30 different isotopes of gallium. Most of those are radioactive except for 2 of them. Okay. Like 2 of all these isotopes of gallium are stable. Only 2 isotopes of them. And, but the rest of them radioactive. Well, among those, we use those a lot in like cancer researches and stuff, because they have like a very short half-life, so they'll inject these radioactive materials. They go out to these, attach to localized spots, react to localized spots, whatever. However, the doctors are looking for them, but they use the radioactivity of these because of a short half-life. That's pretty important to modern life.
That's crazy.
And although it seems like we don't use a lot of it for that reason, it doesn't matter if we use a lot of it. We'll still have to pay whatever we have to pay for it, And so the further we're disconnected from our ability to produce this, the more at risk certain ways of our life are, like being able to detect cancer, being able to have it, to like, look, if we wanted to revamp our hospitals tomorrow, okay, and we were like, look, we got to get more MRIs in there. We got to get more CAT scans in there. We got to get more x-rays in there. These take real metals, and most of them are not silver and gold.
That could be how they found some of my medical issues was with that. Let me say hello, welcome into Virilliance, and welcome into Randy. I've not seen either one of you here, but welcome in. Good to have you. All these unique metals that I think have gone unrecognized, unnoticed, because they've been able to hold gold and silver down, therefore keeping investing out of the metals, right? That's barbaric relics, or and but once these values come into gold and silver, and people are going to, go, and platinum is taken off, right? So you see all these different metals and commodities as a whole, and with the metals moving the most, people are going to come in and they're going to start, as I say, lift up that rock and look under it, and they're going to see all these other unknown metals that are, very,
Ian and rhenium, perfect example
yeah, and
of
and
what
these
where you're going, I think.
yeah. So since people don't know these metals, but they see, that, oh, one industry consumes 80%, and one of the examples I know of one of these metals, so they're happy not to tell anyone else about that they're using 80% of the yearly mining supply. And since no one else knows about it or has a use case for it, like, they're very unknown. Like, we're working with crystallized osmium, and that's a metal that's just been discovered of, a few hundred years. 1800s was just discovered. So, a lot of these metals are unknown to most people. And when the interest comes back into the metals, like I think it's going to, some of these unknown metals are just gonna go crazy, because they're gonna fly off the shelves. And how do you get a hold of them? China's no longer exporting them. We need them. I mean, that's where you're going to get exponential value growth there. So,
well, and let's stop right quick and take a second to just to appreciate. Like, look, a lot of these we don't make look as investors or wealth preservationists, or however you want to put it. When we, like, I really want to point at rhenium for a second, okay? It doesn't matter how you feel about that metal. Well, I don't know about that. That seems risky. I don't know. It doesn't seem to have enough uses. Well, Boeing thought it was pretty important for a few isolated items, important enough to buy up 80% of the world's supply.
right.
It doesn't matter how you feel about it. Do you recognize the value, the core principles of how these values are structured in the first place?
Right.
And if you recognize these, there's a lot of metals out there with extreme potentials, and it doesn't matter what your belief or your confidence in it is. In a lot of these, the numbers just simply don't lie. Boeing
right.
doesn't give a damn how the investor feels about it, because Boeing is the market.
Right. And it's the unique makeup. It's the unique characteristics that each metal has that make its demand and rarity and value so appealing and high to certain industry or certain places, and at such a low, availability. That's what we're talking about. And if it's all being sucked up by just a few industries, but no one's looking into the metals, and there's free trade around the world, where sure, it might remain suppressed and unknown. But when these things come into people's minds and viewpoints, and understanding takes place, and trade restrictions start to happen, some of these values could really get crazy. And at his cauldron says people have no idea how many metals are really needed in modern meds, aerospace, etc. Well, we might not know exactly, and that may be true. And also, like, within they've taken it off of the military industry. We used to know how much went into military. They no longer report that. So there are several places that we don't know exactly how much that industry is using. However, we know that for the past 6 years, we've been in a couple 100 million ounce deficit each year for the past 6 years. So we're definitely eating up more than we're mining, by a few 100 million ounces each year. And industry is only growing. And if monetary value is going to come in like I expect it to, with the global reserve losing value, then this could get exponential fast. So that's how I'm viewing that. Although there are industries that are, we don't know how much they use, which is another thing that makes some of these unique metals that we're talking about that most people don't know about or pay attention to. Also interesting is those unique characteristics and values, that the industry is using them for, but doesn't let other industry know, doesn't report the amount that is being used, gives them that much cover, but it doesn't make it mean that it's not important to their overall use case. It could, when you have to have it, you have to have it. And yes, and that's that, they're operating easy now when the rock is covering them, but when that rock gets lifted up and people look under it, that's when then they can no longer hide that use case and value case. And so that's when some of these things could be hard to come across suddenly and quite value driven. So
yeah, and we're not saying run out and abandon gold and silver by any means. These are your great these are your great communicators, your monetary communicators, but these other metals are built on the very same foundations that we chose gold and silver on. The same reasons. It could have been any metal. It just so happened to be called gold and silver, but once you've already stepped into that world of gold and silver, and you really take like an honest look out into the world of other potential investments, you already understand the core principles. If you understand the gold and silver game, you already understand these core principles. Well, and you look at these other metals and you take an honest look at them and you say, do these meet the same core principles? You're going to find with a lot of these, you're going to say, well, yes, in fact, they do, don't they? And in fact, they're quite a bit more powerful in some regards. Now, are they going to be as liquid, or are they going to be as fungible? Are they going to be as stable? Probably not. That's why we use everything, is this whole thing on B and I, Ian, and a lot of you in here likely have built a foundation of gold and silver. But when gold and silver are busy fighting and mucking, if you don't feel like running with the herd, there's other options to take that are quite legitimate. And so oftentimes you'll hear us talking about these other metals, but really it's just us reflecting on the principles of gold and silver. It's kind of like looking into the future. But you want to look into the future, look at some of these metals that meet these same core qualities and look what's happened to them. And then now apply that same basic understanding back to your gold and silver, which take a lot more money and a lot more time to affect because of their abundance, because they are actually quite abundant compared to most of these metals. That's part of why they're a much better store of value,
Yeah.
So
indeed. So it's interesting to watch, like when you are in Space Miner's world and you keep an eye on some of these rare metals and you reach out to purchase more, because he also works like, he's like a mad chemist, and he puts these metals together and it reacts in front of you, and suddenly he's lighting things on fire from gases coming from it, and it gets interesting. But anyway, with that, with his type of mind where he's watching these other metals, and he reaches out to purchase more, and here, this dealer's out, so the next dealer's out, and I went over here and they're out too, but over here they have a little bit, it's the value is twice as high as it was. And then you reach out to the main guy and he says, we can't get any more in.
Yeah, I don't even know if I shared that.
Right.
Yeah, let me share that real quick.
Yeah.
when I was hunting gallium today, um, and I was talking to a major supplier. I won't say who, but a major supplier. He had expressed that he hasn't been able to restock in a year. Like he has not restocked in a year, and he has no potential of restocking in the future, no availability, no expectancy of restocking in the future. And his very next words out of his mouth were, China's hoarding everything.
Yeah. And that's I've been hearing that from other directions too. But to see that you in not just one metal but a few have had this same experience,
But
you
this is
know,
a major company that like majored in this metal. These guys majored in this metal. This was supposed to be like that's what I was trying to get at earlier with this. Like we've been living in the lap of luxury of having available supply. Dude, I went out shopping for gallium this morning as if it was just a normal everyday thing that was going to cost me a little bit more than your average metal, you
yeah,
know? Like I thought it would just be there. I
yeah,
thought it would just be the reasonable price. And I'm like, wow, have I really been gone that long that these are the new prices? And I went shopping around. But yes, this is the new standard. And it's about to get wild once everybody figures out that all these guys are empty and that they don't have any plans of restocking and that the whole rest of the world's going to have to come up with the 2% that China doesn't control.
right.
China controlling roughly 98% of the world's gallium.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Things are going to get real in real areas, and a
It's a
lot of
ticking time bomb.
yeah, a lot of foundations are going to get shaken, and it's things are some big shifts I feel are coming, and so this is I think gonna continue in the metals. Sure, there's gonna be some drop backs at some points. It'll probably be volatile, but with this much upward movement and a steady incline, we had a pullback today. It's not straight up, but it just solidly continues to rise.
You know,
That's I think this is going to be a new trend and not likely to soon go away.
it gives me look. Let me try another different perspective summary on what I was saying earlier. I look out there and I've been dealing with these metals. It's throwing all the red flags in the world that one by one we're absorbing. Because look, all of these metals I'm after have relatively like low shelf supply. Like it most of these metals pretty much go from the refinery to the end usage, like right to the hands. Like there's no middlemaning, there's no bullions to go through, there's no warehouses. They just grab it direct.
Yeah,
And but again, it's throwing all the red flags in the world that they really are scrapping. Like when I was asking him like for alternatives on the gallium thing, I was looking for alternatives. I said, well, what do you got? That what do you got in alloy? What do you got in amalgam? What do you got? What do you got? And what do you got that's dirty? I'll recycle it. And he's like, it's all cleaned out. But dude, this just pops red flags for the reality of it's coming one by one. Like I've been watching them from the elements that have the least amount of storage to the elements that have a little bit more storage, a little bit more reserves, a little bit more reserves. It's just stepping up the ladder. Like it's just taking more time to get through some of these reserves before we're going to be notified. End of story. They're going to play it cool till the very last second. Dude, they're going to play it cool to the very last second.
yeah,
And they're going to try to maintain their impression. They're going to try to buy time. They're going to try to restock. They're going to try to keep people from freaking out and outbidding them, getting to the source before they do. These guys are just trying to buy time, generate money. Hopefully they can get back to their source and get it before you figure it out and outbid them at the source. And this is their big fear right now. And so we're piling through reserves. Like everything that we are consuming in these metals is primarily out of a reserve, not out of our direct production. And and if this trend extends into our gold and silver, then what we're not being told is that we're just piling through our reserves with no hope of replenishment, and eventually there will be no shelf life on silver. It'll be mined to refine to some big dog's hands before it ever gets a chance to get to you. This is the trend I'm seeing. You know, I see it out of some of these quicker because they have smaller reserves, smaller supplies, smaller productions.
Right. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
but it's consistent, and it should give us all the warning we need about what's about to happen. Gold, silver, platinum, palladium included in there. Sure. You
Yep.
know,
Yep.
take it as a warning from the future. It's
Yeah. So,
I'll be right back.
yep. Edis Coldren. Sorry if I'm getting your name wrong there. Yeah, could we mine these in the U.S.? Some could be found. Yeah, in fact, we just opened up. I just seen today that we opened up our own rare earths mine. And rare earths aren't necessarily very rare per se, but they're hard to extract. And so, yeah, that's something that China's, that we always get from China. And now I just see our opening up some of our own. We have one other rare earth mine going here, and now there's another one. But yeah, and we also have, some gold and silver mines. We just have a new silver mine opening up under, I guess it's First Mint, under First Majestic, and they have mines in operating mostly in Mexico for quite a while. They're a well-known business, but now they've just opened up their own mine here in the States, I believe in Nevada, and they actually have their own minting their own product of silver. And they have some, go check them out. It's called First Mint, and you can buy silver directly from them. So that is, now we do have an operating silver mine here. We have some gold mines as well. So we have mines for some of these, but some of the certain metals are hard to find. I think there's actually there is platinum in Canada, but right now a lot of the platinum is just being mined in South America, Russia. So I mean, we probably have access to a lot of these, but not necessarily mines working on them now. And these prices that are taking off and rising will bring out new mines, and that's going to take that type of thing to be taking place, more prolonged, to bring, for us to go out and open our own platinum mine in Canada, or talk Canada into it, and so that's why you're seeing these prices run, because that's the type of thing that will be needed for some of this type of stuff to come back online in the States. So good question. Yes, in time, probably there will be some metals that will be hard to get and maybe not even publicly available, with some of these governments already, declaring some of these things critical. Could get worse. So who knows? But good question. But anyway, I think we've went through a lot of what I wanted to get through. Did you want to cover anything else right quick before we get out of here?
Yes. Maybe just something to kind of lead with. I kind of caught the tail end of that with our own refining and stuff, talking about our own mines, our own refines, right?
Yes.
Kind of like there is, if a guy's kind of like looking for like an outside investment and trying to get an idea of how we're trying to overcome this as a nation, which could be a hint of how other nations are going to try to overcome this. There's going to be a lot of focus coming up soon on refining. Okay. Everybody's always talking about the miners, and which is fair. It's got to come from somewhere.
Yep.
We talk a lot about the end uses,
Oh, I should.
which is great because it's got to go somewhere, right? But in the meantime, um, somebody has to do the chemical work. Somebody has to do the elemental work. Um, you know, and they have and they somebody creates these. And our only hope of getting through this is not so it's not so reliant on the mines as we think, so much as like there's a huge portion of our dependence that comes just from our ability to recover. Okay, because we can dig it up all day, but if we can't recover it, then it's still freaking useless to us. And that's a huge portion of why China gets so much control. China's willing to just destroy their environment and destroy their people, enslave labor through, and they're a dynastic country, so they're not thinking about this generation per se. They're not even thinking about the living generation per se. They'll
Mhm.
abuse 3 generations deep if they
Mhm.
think generation number 4 is going to win,
Yeah.
right? And so if you guys really wanted to like start leading about like what are we going to be capable of soon, I'd really point at our refineries. This is where we're going to be harvesting huge portions of recycling. Recycling is about to be huge,
Yeah.
huge, um, and expect a lot of natural, industrial, commercial response to this.
Yep.
People want to make bucks, and you want to make bucks, you need to refine. This is where the technology is going to push us now. We have lots of metals available, but little ability to deal with them.
Yeah.
And so, if we really want to figure out where we're about to go, I think the key focus should really be towards refining and figuring out who's refining, and who are they getting rid of it to, and maybe that could be a glimpse into the nearer time frame of what we're going to be looking at. That would be your quickest glimpse to your nearest glimpse of the future. The mines are a long-term glimpse of the future. End use is a knee jerk, but the refiners, these guys are telling you what's coming next.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah, good point. And I want to say just before we get out of here that that was a point that I didn't bring up yet that I think is a good point to bring out. Yes, you know, like everybody's hearing about Rick Rule selling some of his silver. He sold some of his physical, but then he took that and put it into, from my understanding, into silver miners because he's seeing obviously see there's a lag between. And I heard. So I was talking about First Majestic just a minute ago, and I heard um, Keith come on and say that. So it's like, they do quarterly releases and estimates and all this stuff. Well, they only sell their metal every so often. So like the last time they sold, silver was at $30 or whatever. And so now that it's the new year coming on, they're going to be selling again. Well, now the price is at $130. So the mining stock companies have not moved nearly as much as the metal has moved. And some of the reasons for that is their, like, how their books get run. They won't see the value increase until they cash in some of their metals and get this next value tied into their model. And so I think there is this. I don't know. I don't get my advice from me on paper, but from my understanding, this is kind of a unique chance where we watching the metal move up that much and the miners still not move yet. There's that arbitrage chance where you can get into the mining section, because usually once the miners and the metals take off, the miners will outperform the metals. So this is like an extra unique, you know, chance to make big values off of paper. I don't trade in the paper, but that's what I heard. So I thought I would mention that before we get out of here. Stacking Surfer, welcome in. Good to see you. Thanks for being here. We're just wrapping up, but yeah, what do you think about the gold to silver ratio closing so fast? It's about 7 months, we went from 106 down to 44 or something like that. So
Well, we've seen it have.
move.
We've
Yep.
literally seen a direct halving, from 105 to below.
Yep.
I mean, and you and I have talked well beyond that, how easily that could happen. Not
Yeah.
saying you will,
Right.
but
Yep.
how easily it could, And
Yep.
so, no, dude, that was, wow. We kind of tackled a lot tonight. Chat, did you guys like anything you felt was really off there? I mean, anything you guys just like want to smack me in the face about? I would get it.
Yeah. Anything you guys, if you guys have some specific questions, put them in the chat down below, and I'll try to bring them in the next live stream we do or something, or answer them there as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, we appreciate you. We'll be back soon with more content. Thanks everybody for hanging out. We had some new attendees today. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. Great having you. Looks like we've got some new like-minded individuals. So good to have you, and we'll hopefully catch you on the next one. Thanks everybody.
Bye, guys.